Hello, Alan.
Good evening, Miss Letty.
Right, so we have another story by Edgar Allan Poe.
Right.
And to start it, we're going to do 3 idioms, which is related to the story, which you don't know about yet. So it's a bit of a surprise for you. So the idioms are, Alan, like pulling teeth, which means something is very difficult to do. The next one is to fight tooth and nail, which means that you will fight very hard or fiercely for something. And the last one, by the skin of your teeth, which means you could just about do it in time. So I will go first with my example if I can, and you then must give another one. Are we ready, Alan?
This is the first one, like pulling teeth. Right,
Yes.
okay.
Okay. So sometimes when I'm giving my English classes to the young children, it can be like pulling teeth because they don't really want to be there. Right, your example.
Well, I have a similar example. This is the students in Madagascar. I ask a question, but it takes ages before I get a response. And so it's really just like pulling teeth. You have to be very patient.
Right, okay, the next one. I feel like I had to fight tooth and nail to bring up my children.
Oof, gosh. Uh, um, uh, I guess I'll do something now. Fight tooth and nail. Something that's.
I'm going to help you.
Yeah.
Okay. My neighbor talks so much, I have to fight tooth or nail to be able to say something.
Well, because of the language barrier.
No, because she doesn't stop talking.
Oh, I see. Oh gosh.
Right,
Yeah.
by the skin of your teeth. Can you do that one?
Yes. Sometimes I have to catch a bus when I go to the coast, and if I cut it a little bit fine, I do catch it by the skin of my teeth sometimes because I've left it to the last minute.
Right. So if you're not careful, sometimes you nearly miss your bus and you
Yes.
catch it by the skin of your teeth.
Teeth. Yes.
I remember once when I was about 8 months pregnant, I saw the bus coming.
Oh.
And as I couldn't run, I caught the bus by the skin of my teeth.
Yeah.
Right. So we've tried to help our viewers use these idioms. Right. So here we go. Now, the reason I chose them, Alan, was because our story has to do with what? Can you see something in the picture?
Yes, and a row of teeth in front of us. We'll have to see what this is all about.
Right. So, do you know how to say this name? I found it a little difficult.
Berenice.
Bernice, that
Oh,
is right.
well, Bernice or Berenice. Without the E, I would say Berenice. But with the E
Bernice,
in the
no?
middle, I would say Berenice.
Go for the second one, right? So
Right.
this is the name of a girl or a lady, and the story is written by Edgar Allan Poe. So we will see what it has to do with everything. Okay, Alan. So If you want to read the story nice and slowly to make it more frightening, be my guest.
Egaeus is my name. My family, I will not name it, is one of the oldest in the land. We have lived here inside the walls of this great house for many hundreds of years. I sometimes walk through its silent rooms. Each one is richly decorated by the hands of only the finest workmen. But my favorite has always been the library. It is here, among books, that I have always spent most of my time. My mother died in the library. I was born here. Yes, the world is heard my first cries here. And these walls, the books that stand along them, are among the first things that I remember in my life. I was born here in this room, but my life did not begin here. I know I lived another life before the one I am living now. I can remember another time like a dream without a shape or body, a world of eyes, sweet, sad sounds, and silent shadows. I woke up from that long night, my eyes opened, and I saw the light of day again. Here in this room full of thoughts and dreams.
Right.
Wow.
As a child, I spent my days reading in this library and my young days dreaming here. The years passed. I grew up without noticing it, and soon I found that I was no longer young. I was already in the middle of my life, and I was still living here in the house of my fathers. I almost never left the house, and I felt the library less and less. And so slowly, the real world, life in the world outside these walls, began to seem like a dream to me. The wild ideas, the dreams inside my head were my real world. They were my whole life. Bernice and I were cousins. She and I grew up together here in this house. So he sounds like a man who's never lived his life to the full.
No.
He's been in the house all the time and he did nothing with his life. So off you go.
But we grew so differently. I was the weak one, so often sick, always lost in the dark and heavy thoughts. She was the strong one, healthy one, always so full of life, always shining like a bright new sun. She ran over the hills under the great blue sky while I studied in the library. I lived inside the walls of my mind, fighting with the most difficult and painful ideas. She walked quickly and happily through life, never thinking of the shadows around her. I watched our young years flying away on the silent wings of time. Berenice never thought of tomorrow. She lived only for the day.
So what this wants to say that they were two very different people. He lived in his mind and overthinking things, and she took part in life outside. Bernice, I called out her name. Bernice, and 1,000 sweet voices answered me from the past. I can see her clearly now, as she was in her early days of beauty and light. I see her, and then suddenly all is darkness, mystery, and fear. Her bright young days ended when an illness, a terrible illness, came down on her like a sudden storm. I watched the dark clouds pass over her. I saw it change her body and mind completely. The cloud came and went, leaving someone I did not know. Who was this sad person I saw now? Where was my Berenice, the Berenice I once knew? So Berenice was very unlucky and she became very ill.
Back with an illness. Mm.
And she didn't look the happy, bright person that he knew.
This first illness caused several other illnesses to follow. One of these was very unusual type of epilepsy. This epilepsy always came suddenly without warning. Suddenly, her mind stopped working. She fell to the ground, red in the face, shaking all over, making strange sounds, her eyes not seeing anymore. The epilepsy often ended with her going into a kind of very deep sleep. Sometimes this sleep was so deep that it was difficult to tell if she was dead or not. Often she woke up from the sleep as at the bottom there is an explanation of epilepsy. It's a serious illness in which for a short time the mind stops working. Everything goes black and the body jumps and shakes.
Have you ever met anybody with epilepsy?
Yes, I had an experience with a man way back in. I was working up on a scaffold tower, about 25 feet up in the air, and this man all of a sudden had a fit, an epileptic fit, and he came to the tower and he shook it violently. I had to really hold on because I thought I was going to fall off. And then the workmen saw the state, they knew he was an epileptic case, and they took him and they calmed him down. They laid him down on the ground and they just let him ride out this epileptic fit. It was really horrid to see because he's foaming at the mouth and his eyes were all everywhere but focused, and it was a sorry sight. And it took about 10 minutes before he finally calmed down slowly, and then they took him somewhere to rest. But it's a terrifying thing.
Yes. And the person who has it has no control over it,
None
which
at
isn't
all.
as
No,
sad.
they're born with it. Yes.
I remember many years ago, I was working in London and I was with a colleague and we went to buy something in a shoe shop.
Oh, yes.
And all of a sudden she had an epileptic fit.
Mm.
The thing is, I didn't know she was
Oh.
epileptic. So it was like a shock for me.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden, as you said, she was on the floor, shaking, moving her head violently. So we had to stop her from swallowing her tongue.
Yes. Put them in the recovery
And then we
position.
called for help.
Yes.
So I said to her, why didn't you tell me you had this? Because it was very frightening and I didn't know what to do. So then she explained to me and that was okay. Right, just a minute. Suddenly, as the epilepsy began, she would just get up again as if nothing was wrong. So when you have this epileptic fit, Berenice, he didn't know if she was unconscious, if she was
No
dead,
memory of it. No.
whatever happened, he didn't realize. So that's an important detail, that she looked even dead sometimes. She had such a bad attack. It was during this time that my illness began to get worse. I felt it growing stronger day by day. I knew I could do nothing to stop it. And soon, like Bernice, my illness changed my life completely. It was not my body that was sick, it was my mind. It was an illness of the mind. I can only describe it as a type of monomania. I often lost myself for hours, deep in thought about something so unimportant that it seemed funny afterwards. But I'm afraid it may be impossible to describe how fully I could lose myself in endless study of even the simplest and most ordinary objects. So, Berenice had a physical illness and the man had a mental illness. So we must remember these little details. Right.
I could sit for hours looking at one letter of a word on a page. I could stay for most of the summer's day, watching a shadow on the floor. I could sit without taking my eyes off a wood fire in winter until it burnt away to nothing. I could sit for a whole night dreaming about the sweet smell of a flower. I often repeated a single word again and again for hours until the sound of it had no more meaning to me. When I did these things, I always lost all idea of myself, all idea of time, of movement, even of being alive.
So I'm thinking that maybe when he has these attacks of obsession with objects or things, he doesn't realize whatever is happening to him.
Yeah.
He gets lost in his thoughts. There must be no mistake. You must understand that this monomania was not a kind of dreaming. Dreaming is completely different. The dreamer I'm talking about, the dreamer who is awake, not asleep, needs and uses the mind to build his dreams. Also, the dreamer nearly always forgets the thought or idea or object that began his dream. But with me, the object that began the journey into the deepest thought always stayed in my mind. The object was always there at the center. So monomania is thinking about one thing or idea and not being able to stop. So I think you could say you're obsessed with it, no? So he wasn't able to stop thinking. It's your turn now.
It was the center of everything. It was both the subject and the object of my thoughts. My thoughts always came back to that object in a never-ending circle. The object was no longer real, but I still could not pull myself away from it. I never loved Berenice, even during the brightest days of her beauty. This is because I have never had feelings of my heart, of the heart. My loves have always been in the world of the mind. Wow.
So he sounded cold-hearted. Cold-hearted, no?
Yes.
Well, I think if he stayed all his life in the library, he had no experience of being with people. And then he got this mental illness, obsession. So maybe that's why he's never had any deep feelings for anyone, no?
That's right.
In the grey light of early morning, among the dancing shadows of the forest, in the silence of my library at night, Berenice moved quickly and lightly before my eyes. I never saw my Berenice as a living Berenice. For me, Berenice was a Berenice in a dream. She was not a person of this world. No, I never thought of her as someone real. Berenice was the idea of Berenice. She was something to think about, not someone to love. And so, why did I feel different after her illness? Why, when she was so terribly and sadly changed, did I shake and go white when she came near me?
Wow. Because I saw the terrible waste of that sweet and loving person, because now there was nothing left of Bernice I once knew. It is true, I never loved her, but I knew she always loved me deeply. And so one day, because I felt so sorry for her, I had a stupid and evil idea. I asked her to marry me. Our wedding day was growing closer, and one warm afternoon, I was sitting in the library. The clouds were low and dark. The air was heavy. Everything was quiet. Suddenly, lifting my eyes from my book, I saw Bernice standing in front of me. She was like a stranger to me, only a weak shadow of the woman I remembered. I could not even remember how.
So here we have a picture of her with the man in the library. And I suppose in this black and white picture, she's supposed to be pretty and beautiful and young before she has her illness, no?
Yes.
So just 1 minute, I'm just going back a sec.
I
could not even
how.
remember how she was before.
That's right, yeah.
Good God, she was so thin. I could see her arms and legs through the grey cloth that hung round her wasted body. She said nothing, and I could not speak. I do not know why, but suddenly I felt a terrible fear pressing down like a great stone on my heart. I sat there in my chair, too afraid to move. Her long hair fell across her face. She was as white as snow. She looked strangely calm and happy, but there was no life at all in her eyes. They did not even seem to see me. I watched as her thin, bloodless lips slowly opened. They made a strange smile that I could not understand. And it was then when I saw her teeth. Oh, why did she have to smile at me? Why did I have to see those teeth? Do you know what he's going to be obsessed with now?
Well, it says there she's got a terrible set of teeth. I don't know, a bit like Dracula or something.
No, beautiful.
Oh, right. I heard a door closing and I looked up. Bernice was not there anymore. The room was empty, but her teeth did not leave the room of my mind. Now I saw them more clearly than when she was standing in front of me. Every smallest part of each tooth was burnt into my mind. The teeth, there they were in front of my eyes. Here, there, everywhere I looked. And they were so white with her bloodless lips always moving round them.
I'm glad you find it amusing. Oh dear. I tried to fight this sudden, terrible monomania, but it was useless. All I could think about, all I could see in my mind's eye was the teeth. They were now the center of my life. I held them in my mind's eye, looked at them in every light, turned them every way. I studied their shape, their differences, and the more I thought about them, the more I began to want them. Yes, I wanted them. I had to have the teeth. Only the teeth could bring me happiness, could stop me from going mad. Now, Alan, could you explain to me maybe? Here we have an unusual construction. In my mind's eye. Could we explain this as in the center of my mind?
Well, it's obviously he can see this quite clearly. It's like having a dream. It's in his mind, but he can visually see it through his eye, in my mind's eye. He can actually visualize these teeth in front of him.
So imaginary. Imaginary
Yes, if you
is
like,
so
yes.
obsessed with it, no?
Yes,
That
yes.
it's as though it's not literally an eye in his mind, but it's as though his eye is in his
Yes.
mind. Off you go.
Evening came, then darkness turned into another day. Soon a second night was falling, and I sat there alone, never moving. I was still lost in thought, in that one same thought, the teeth. I saw them everywhere I looked, in the evening shadows, in the darkness in the front of my eyes. Then a terrible cry of horror woke me from my dreams. I heard voices and more cries of sadness and pain. I got up and opened the door of the library. A servant girl was standing outside crying. "Your cousin, sir," she began. "It was her epilepsy, sir. She died this morning." Oh dear. Wow.
Very unexpected, no?
Yes.
Very suddenly.
Yes.
This morning, I looked out of the window. Night was falling. We are ready to bury her now, said the girl. I found myself waking up alone in the library again. I thought that I could remember unpleasant, excited dreams, but I did not know what they were. It was midnight. They buried Berenice soon after dark. I told myself again and again, but I could only half remember the hours since then, hours full of terrible unknown horror. So I think he realizes that something has happened, but he can't remember. I think that's what it's trying to say here. I knew something happened during the night, but I could not remember what it was. Those hours of the night were like a page of strange writing that I could not understand.
Next, I heard the high cutting scream of a woman. I remember thinking, what did I do? I asked myself this question out loud. And the walls of the library answered me in a soft voice like mine. What did you do? There was a lamp on the table near me, with a small box next to it. I knew this box well. It belonged to our family doctor. But why was it there, now, on the table? And why was I shaking like a leaf as I looked at it? Why was my hair standing on my head?
So maybe he's getting nervous.
Yes.
There was a knock on the door. A servant came in. He was wild with fear and spoke to me quickly in a low, shaking voice. I could not understand all of what he was saying. Some of us heard a wild cry during the night, sir, he said. We went to find out what it was, and we found Berenice's body lying in the open, sir, he cried. Someone took her out of the hole where we buried her. Her body was cut and bleeding. But worse than that, she was not dead, sir. She was still alive.
Oh dear.
Can you guess what happened?
Well, not at the moment, but somebody obviously attacked her, I should think, and tried to bury her body and keep quiet about it. I think probably it was he himself did this unknowingly, perhaps.
Well, I'm not going to say anything now, but I will explain in a minute, right?
Right.
So remember, everyone thought she was dead.
Yes.
And that's why they buried her. But why did they misunderstand this?
Well,
So I will tell you in a minute. He pointed at my clothes. There was blood all over them. I said nothing. He took my hand. I saw cuts and dried blood on it. I cried out, jumped to the table, and tried to open the box. I tried and I tried, but I couldn't. It fell to the floor and broke. Dentist tools fell out of it, and with them, so small, so white, 32 teeth fell here, there, and everywhere.
Dear.
So here are the teeth on the floor.
Yes, this is
and the dentist tools. Right. So that was the end of the story, Alan. But if we go back a little, what illness did she suffer from?
Epilepsy.
And what was she like when she had this fit? She looked as though she was?
She was dead.
Right. So they misunderstood her for being
They thought
dead.
she had died, yes.
Because you can imagine, it's an imaginary story, but the servants wouldn't have understood epilepsy at that time.
Yeah.
So they thought she was dead, so they buried her.
Yeah.
And then here he comes along, obsessed with her, and without him realizing, he took her out of the hole where she was buried. And as he was obsessed with the teeth, he removed them as a keepsake, no?
Oh my goodness. What a story.
So what did you think? Did you like it?
Well, yes, it was different, that's for sure. Certainly
Right.
not what I expected.
Right.
Of the
So
outcome.
sometimes, hundreds of years ago, people were mistaken for being dead.
Yes.
And it was like something that frightened people in case they were buried alive, no?
Yes. Yeah, that's right.
Because if you can imagine, hundreds of years ago, they didn't truly understand epilepsy to the full. And there could have been misunderstandings for this or maybe other illnesses.
Yes. Yes.
So anyway,
there we go. That was.
I hope you enjoyed it, Alan.
Well,
Did you enjoy it?
That's for sure.
Did you enjoy the story?
Yes, yes, quite enjoyable. Yes, I don't read a lot really. In fact, I say that. Having said that, at the weekend, Saturday, I went past a second-hand store, and she's got loads of books in boxes, and I picked out a couple which I like. The title looks quite inviting. One is called "Be Careful What You Wish For," and the other one is called "Where Are All the Boys?" I haven't read them yet, but I'll tell you how I get on with them. But I'm not a reader of books, really.
But the beauty of these, I was never a fan of this writer, and we just done 3 stories now, is they're short.
Yes.
And so you can get to the end. But there is one more story we have to read, Alan, and I will see if you like the next one. So we've read 2 stories with this man,
Yes.
Edgar Allan Poe,
Yes.
and he's well known in America for his Gothic way of writing, not like the twist at the end and it being a bit dark, no?
Yeah.
So thank you for your help, Alan. And
You're
I
welcome.
hope our viewers enjoy listening to the story. Okay, then, until next
Okay.
time.
I'll see you next time then. Okay.